DigitalituM podcast at the intersection of manufacturing and digital transformation. Today is a special episode as we can highlight a supporter of our podcast, the Messe Frankfurt with SPS Atlanta. Looking to take your manufacturing operations to the next level? SPS Atlanta 2025 Smart Production Solutions Show is the event you can't afford to miss. Happening September 16th to the 18th at the Georgia World Congress Center, SPS Atlanta brings together the latest in industrial automation, from smart sensors to robotics to cybersecurity, AI, and IIoT. From plant managers, engineers, and system integrators to C-suite executives, this is where you'll find the solutions, business connections, and ideas to future-proof your operations. Register now and join the inaugural US edition of this global automation event, the SPS Atlanta 2025. Visit spsamericas.com to learn more about it, or click on the link below in the show notes. Welcome to the DigitalituM podcast at the intersection of manufacturing and digital transformation. This is episode 23 already, this time with Ben. Hey Ben, welcome to the show.
Hi Marcus, thanks for having me.
As we get started, let's jump right into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I guess starting all the way back at the beginning, I went to college for electrical engineering, and out of school, I first started off working at the Bose Corporation, the audio company famous for wave radios, sound systems, and audio systems for cars.
We heard about.
Yeah, I think so. And I actually started my very early days in their tech support department, and then I moved into the automotive group, where I spent a lot of my time tuning the audio systems for peak performance, imaging, and spectral response, which is a big part of the magic sauce that makes those Bose systems sound so good. So it was a really interesting company to work for. They were really innovative and really encouraged exploration and experimentation, which was really a wonderful place to start out.
I imagine that. And where was that physically? Were you always in the Atlanta area, or did you live before somewhere else?
Yeah, no, actually, that's a great question. I used to live in the Boston area in Massachusetts, and Bose is in the Framingham area. And so, yeah, I worked for Bose for about 5 years, and it was a really, really good time, really fun place to work for sure.
And what led you then go away from Bose and doing now your own thing?
Yeah, so it's probably a story that's not too unfamiliar to our audience. We had our first kid and we wanted to move down to be closer to family. So we ended up moving down to the Atlanta area. And at that point, I got a job at Crane Currency, actually at a part of Crane Currency that I just acquired, which was a startup. And they had a brand new technology called micro-optics, which you may see today in the US 100, that little strip that produces the bells and hundreds that move around as you interact with it.
So on the $100 note you're talking about.
In the $100 note, but also on banknotes around the world at this point. But, I started there, and I started in the software and design department. So both doing the artwork required to actually make the images move in the way that they did, but also the software to simulate it, to make, accurate reproductions of that in a digital space, all the way to the creation of the very tiny microstructures required to deliver those products. So I was very fortunate to kind of get in almost on the ground floor of that technology. And so I was able to, really dig in and, develop and innovate all kinds of different algorithms and processes for making new types of micro-optics, new types of interaction for micro-optics. And during my time there, we built out from, having just a handful of countries that used micro-optics for their security to, by the time I left, not too long ago, probably about a year ago, we had like 160 plus denominations around the world that use micro-optics, including lots of new generations of that technology that had come about during that time. Somewhere in the middle of that, weirdly enough, I actually left Crane and I went to work at IBM in their semiconductor manufacturing department. And so in that time, I spent about 2 years there. I was working on the 10 nanometer and 7 nanometer nodes of the next generation semiconductors that are coming out these days. And that was a really interesting place to work as well. But in the end, I was kind of drawn back to Crane. They offered me a position sort of leading the department that I had left. And I went back there and I spent the last 10 years working there, growing the, departments and types of things that I got involved in as I went. And so not only was I at that point like managing software and design, but also the material science behind all of this.
That sounds like a big responsibility.
It was an interesting one. One of the interesting side responsibilities was, even though I was R&D, a lot of what I was getting involved in was ensuring quality in production, making sure that they actually were able to manufacture these products the way that they were supposed to be made, that they looked how they were supposed to look, that the things didn't distort too much as you manufactured them. There were a lot of things that went into it that, such a precisely engineered product is very sensitive to any kind of deviations and so forth. So a fair amount of my time was spent on ensuring quality in the final product. And that was, kind of what inspired me to be doing what I'm doing now.
And as we come now from your personal story to what you're doing now, tell us a little bit about your company now and what problem in the industry you want to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. So, during my time at Crane and since then, there have been a lot of times where, I think everyone can agree that quality is really hard to do. It's, everyone knows what it takes to do it because the principles are pretty straightforward, but to actually do it requires a lot of discipline, a lot of effort and time.
And repeatability.
Repeatability, yeah, exactly. So, knowing how to do it right and how to do it right every time, all those things are very critical. And one of the things that during my time at Crane getting involved more and more in the quality space was I found that, one, it's really difficult to do quality. You got to take all these measurements, you got to do all this data, you have to make sure all your processes are very well documented, very repeatable, and things like that. And I also realized that, I really didn't like writing documents. That was a thing that I think no one really likes doing. Anytime you ask someone to write a procedure document, that's going to go on the bottom of their to-do list, right? They'd rather do the work. They'd rather do the interesting stuff.
Nobody wants to write work instructions. It's
exactly, and all the formatting boring. And all the stuff. It's all very boring. It's all stuff you already know, so you're just like regurgitating the stuff you know. But the thing that I found that, especially with me, was kind of paradoxical is you give me a document to write, it's going to take me probably weeks to months to do it because I'd rather do everything else on my to-do list. But if someone came by my office and said, "Hey, Ben, how do you do XYZ?" I'd drop everything immediately and I'd tell them exactly how to do it from start to finish. And I'd even tell them all the secret things to watch out for, the things that could go wrong, the things to, check before you're done to make sure that you get it right.
So you're talking about that when you're telling somebody something via, I guess, voice, that is easy. But as soon as you have to sit down and write it down and use a formal way, use the XYZ template.workinstruction.doc from 1990, which is very awesome formatted. And as soon as you touch it, you get already like...
Yeah.
kind of that feeling.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. So that was kind of, there were two things that inspired this product originally. One was kind of witnessing that behavior in myself where, someone asked me how to do something, I'll tell them all day how to do it, but you ask me to write it down, that's a much bigger ask of me, and I'm going to put that off as much as I can. And the other thing was actually a story involving my wife and her mother who needed, someone to take over paying her bills and doing all that stuff, handling her Social Security. And she went to the Social Security office, to understand what exactly she had to do. And, they kind of gave her, here's instructions A, B, C, D, E, F, G to do, how to fill it out, how to get everything ready. And when she got home, she was kind of like, wait, what was I supposed to do? Like, because there was too much stuff.
Too much information.
Exactly. And that was kind of where I was like, man, wouldn't it be great if someone could just like narrate what you're supposed to do and it would just make a document that just kind of did it for you. And so those two things made me realize that a product like that could be really useful, especially in manufacturing, but maybe also in everyday life. And so, yeah, we said, one of the things that AI is really good at is understanding natural language, what people are saying, and then interpreting that. And, I'm sure we've all used ChatGPT to write a formal email to someone that sounds very professional. If you can harness those two processes together, you can make it so you don't have to write these documents anymore. All you got to do is describe it like you would to the intern, and it'll make a document for you. And that was kind of where the initial idea that started it.
That's cool. And for the people which watch that podcast on YouTube, the transcript, by the way, is of course AI generated as well, which is the similar technology. So you transcribe the voice into text and then use this text to combine it, to condense it, to put it in the defined format of a step-by-step work instruction.
Yeah. And what was meant by it, is a thing that AI can do that, just a transcription would never get. That led me to one other problem that I noticed, at least in where I worked previously, is that we had a site where if you'd been there for 35 years, you were still the new guy. Like there were people that worked there 40, 50 years and then they retired. And so they spent their entire career there learning and mastering how to do these very specific processes. And every time one of them would retire, there'd be a huge panic because, this person has 5 decades worth of secret knowledge of exactly how this is done, exactly how to do it right. And if they leave, they know that like the documented procedure does not incorporate all of that information, right? It just incorporates the top level steps. And so one of the things that everyone would panic is either we got to try to hire someone and shadow this person for as long as we can in order to get as much of that information back out, or ask them to document it, which again is not something someone wants to do who's about to retire, right? You don't want to spend your last 6 months of work being like, all right, I'm going to write more formatted documents here so that
this type of people normally are also not the writers, they are the doers. And so therefore they have, again, anxiety if they need to sit in front of a computer and a keyboard and type in things like this versus this.
100%. And actually that's a wonderful point that kind of is also one of the benefits of this technology is that in the past, to your point, like an engineer sitting in the office probably wrote the procedure, right? They wrote down what they imagine is what's actually happening on the line.
In their cubicle, without seeing the line.
In their cubicle, without seeing it, or maybe they saw it once, and they're like, okay, well, that's how it works. And you talk to the people on the line, they're like, yeah, we don't do it that way. We do this stuff. We intervene when this happens. We have all this other information that's, not available to that engineer who wrote that document. And so that was the other thing that we found was really useful with AI in this particular case, is that we can have it document not only like the mechanical step of here's you do this in this order, but also the why. Why do you do it that way? Why do you need the temperature to be controlled between this temperature and this temperature? What happens if it goes out? Those kinds of things, which aren't going to be in your procedure. But, if I'm like conversationally talking to you about a process, I'm probably going to mention, hey, yeah, this needs to be between these two temperatures. Like all that tribal knowledge just kind of comes out when you start talking about it, right? And so it makes it really easy to capture that tribal knowledge and record it for everyone in the future. And you can share that knowledge and make sure that new people coming on to be trained are covered.
So how would you call then this solution?
So we gave it the name of, conversation to SOP, is kind of the name of the product. But basically, yeah, it's using your voice to describe the process, describe the list of tools and materials, everything you need, and it just documents it all for you. And then, you can make you can change it later if something turns out to not be correct, but it does a really good job of capturing what you say and then rewriting it into a professional way, and even capturing warnings and safety alerts of, be sure to wear PPE, watch out for hot materials in case you get burned, those kinds of things. It can understand all that and deliver it.
And I assume that after you speak it and the tool transcribes it and does all the magic, that you still have the ability to make little changes to it, double check it and make changes to it if there's a little
Yeah,
mistake or if things get wrong or stuff like that.
100%. And that's a thing that was really important when we built this tool. Everyone's heard about, the chaos of AI hallucination. Stuff can go wrong, things can happen. And we didn't want to risk, especially if safety is involved or, quality or your personnel. Those things are paramount. So we ensured that there was always a human in the loop of the process. So the way it works functionally is, you hit record, you describe however many steps you want to do to talk it through. It does its magic and it returns, here's what I captured from what you said, including the tribal knowledge, the steps, the warnings, any of that stuff. And at that point, you can give it a thumbs up and it'll add all that stuff right to the document. You give it a thumbs down to say that none of that was right, let's start over. Or there's actually a feedback button, kind of like a chat bot, where you basically just say, hey, actually you put step 2 and step 3's position, shift the order of that. In fact, you made 5 steps, but make it 3 steps. And it will go back and it will understand what you just said, what the input it got, and it will return an updated and corrected version of it. So you don't even have to really go in and type anything to change it. You can actually just describe what you want to be changed, and then you can approve that when you're done.
So in the base, you name it a Voice-to-SOP program. Yeah. I would actually call it a know-how sharing tool, which is much wider and describes the value, what you get out of that. As my understanding and experience is that in manufacturing, this problem is one of the biggest, as older generation is retiring, new people are coming in, and the transfer of knowledge is just so difficult. Because over time, in the last 50 years, things have evolved a lot and getting more complex and more complicated. If you just look in a machine from today versus a machine from 20 years ago, specifically the electronic and software part, that's where most of the change is happening. And of course, all the movements, robotic, precision, all of that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. And in a lot of, as part of, starting a business like what we started, it's good to do a lot of customer interviews or potential customer interviews. So I've spoken with a lot of people in the operations departments, a lot of people in quality assurance departments. And there have been like 2 places where they had no problems with any of this. Like everything was shipshape, everything worked beautifully all the time. But most everyone else is like, yeah, we got some documents on SharePoint, we got some documents over here. No one knows how to get to them. They're really, it's clunky, it's not intuitive. And honestly, no one probably uses them, right? Like maybe you read them when you get hired and are trained, and then the rest of it is probably just shadowing someone else and hoping, they can help correct you if anything goes wrong. And that's one of the things we wanted to change with our platform beyond just making documents easier.
So you're saying your platform is not only the creation part, voice to work instruction, it's also the platform to host the work instructions where then the workers or the users have access to and get the work instructions to then execute it and hopefully do that task in a good way. The worst thing what actually can happen is that a worker out in the field is doing a task, not having the right information or not knowing the information and doing things wrong, and either cause in production a bad part, or when working on a piece of machinery, damage something, which then causes a lot of unplanned downtime because you need to wait for a spare part, or you have to fly in even the specialists from overseas.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, part of the process of this was, okay, we made documents, which is great, but, what do you do with them, right? If no one reads them, does it make a difference? If
If
no
they just
one's
sit
referencing
somewhere
them?
on a SharePoint folder in a folder structure with 100 subfolders and nobody finds them, that doesn't make
Exactly.
sense either.
Or when you change it, how do people know about that it changed?
Yeah.
Like
Where's
all
the
those
latest
things.
version?
Exactly. That's part of the issue. And document control is not like a brand new thing by any means, but the way that we built our document control system is that it actually will, when you're running the process, it'll actually highlight the changes that have been made since the last version, so that you're made aware that this step is maybe being done a little bit differently than you used to do it. So maybe don't be on autopilot right here. Read this instruction a second time and make sure you're doing it the way that now has been approved as the better way. And that's really what it is making sure these documents are actually used and referenced as people work. So not only could you print out a lovely formatted PDF if that's what you want, which, you can do that, all the documents can also be printed as checklists to help you check off what you're doing. And that's an improvement over not having a checklist, of course. But we also create digital checklists, which walk someone through all the steps of doing a process. And it even can incorporate taking measurements. So measuring the voltage of this, the thickness of that, and those things.
Taking a picture of a thing.
Taking a picture, recording a lot number, any of that stuff. All that gets recorded while you do the process, so that now you have this data. So you can prove that you did the process according to your process. So audits should be really easy because you have a record of every single time this process was done, every step that was followed, every measurement that was taken. But what you also have is information on standards. So how long does it take to do these steps? How long does it take to do the entire process start to finish or step to step? You can now understand, some people do this faster, some people do it slower. Are the people doing it faster? Are they better at this? Like, do they just have a better skill, or do they know a trick that they haven't shared with everyone else? Or are they actually skipping a step and they're maybe not doing the job fully? And that's, cause for concern as well. So by using this platform for your execution process, you automatically gather a lot of data that you can then use to then improve. So we kind of have three pillars of what we do. We have document, so get all your documents, get all the right information from the people that know it best. Then you execute the process. And then from that data, you can identify how to improve. And so you can continue to improve and
so you
develop.
can use it in an old world, paper world, and still print them out and run around with paper and do all that. But you also can do the new thing and use this magic device or a tablet, which in the year 2025, 99.999% of people carry with them anyway, and get the information you need at the location you are in order to do your job right.
Exactly. And even beyond that, as I said, the training of when things change, you can highlight those changes to your workforce so they know. We also have a certification system that kind of walks through and certifies each of your team members that they're authorized to do this. They passed a quiz based on the documentation and that they've done certain other requirements, and all that's tracked, again, making your audits and other things like that much easier in the future. So you can focus on what matters. And that's really that's what this is fundamentally about, is making it so that your workforce doesn't have to focus on all this paperwork. They don't have to focus on printing out documents, filling out checklists, things like that. All that is being done and collected automatically for you. All you have to do is execute.
Definitely sounds like a cool solution. And people ask now, that sounds pretty interesting. I want to test it out. When is a good time to see it and demo it live?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. I will be at the SPS show with Marcus here on Thursday. So if you swing by his booth on Thursday, you can come and try out the software, and we'll even give you access to the software for 30 days to try it out and let us know what you think. And we can help you expand this out to your team and make sure that it is doing what you need.
Yes, so SPS Atlanta next week, September 16 to the 18 at the Georgia World Congress Center, right next to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The DigitalituM booth is number 1027, somewhere in the middle to the left, if you see it in the overall layout. And on Thursday, the last day, Ben will be at our booth and will showcase his solution there.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward. Hope to see lots of you there.
Yes, we're all super excited. I think it will be a good show with the latest and greatest in industrial automation, robotics, PLC, and then, of course, all the different digital tools, what we have at DigitalituM. We definitely will have another kind of work instruction solution here as well. That's the one where we're here, the site, the archive system, which guides an operator through a manual assembly process by projecting the work instruction with the video projector down on the work surface. And the 3D sensor is actually checking everything and does quality control in every step. And we have an assembly what our visitors can put together and taken apart.
Very cool. I look forward to seeing that.
And you get the chance to use that as well and kind of see what is the difference between your system and this system. As at the end of the day, my philosophy is there are a lot of tools out there, like there are in your toolbox. And with each tool, you can do a certain thing. Why do you have, for example, so many screwdrivers in your toolbox? Because they have all different sizes, shapes. They are flatheads, they are Phillips, they are Torx. Have you ever tried to open up a flathead screw with a Phillips screwdriver? Does that work?
No. You need the right tool for the right job.
It may work the other way around, but not in that combination. And that's why you need so many different tools, but you also need the know-how of what is the right tool for the right task to do it in an efficient way. That's what we focus here at DigitalituM, by understanding manufacturing and the problems. And on the other side, understanding what different tools are on the market to be able to recommend the right tool to the right application and also make sure it works with the implementation and all of that. And we're glad we have you guys now on board as well.
Yes, no, it's glad to have joined the team, and looking forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, so again, this Thursday, September 18 at SPS Atlanta, that's where you can meet Ben and check out his magic tool, Voice-to-SOP, or I would just call it know-how transfer, make it work.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Marcus.
You're welcome.